I just ask you, what are the steps to get going here?
Well, in my book, I break it into 4 because they're so easy and they're so easy to remember. Step number 1 is show up. This is a relationship. You're having a conversation with your wise inner self, your higher self, your divine self, divine mind, source intelligence. Doesn't matter what you call it. You can label it God, or you can label it, from a psychological standpoint, your higher self. Doesn't matter what you label it. The point is, this wisdom does live in each and every one of us. So you got to show up to have a conversation, to have a relationship, to build this daily conversation to the point where it's a relationship that you can trust. And number 2 is then to open up. Talk. Tell your story. Talk about what's going on. Ask for guidance. Step 3 is to listen up. And, of course, it's questions that activate the voice. So listen. Ask your questions in the open-up stage. And then in the listen-up stage, pay attention. What's coming through? Listen. Listen from your whole heart. Listen with your what we call your spiritual ear. So you're no longer trying to connect the dots for just a practical understanding of what's going on, but at the soul level, what are you learning? Why did your soul call this forth? And then the 4th step is to follow up. If you receive wisdom on the page, well, guess what? You got to take it. There's change coming down the pike when you ask for this level of guidance, and your life will change. I say that in the preface of the book. If you do not want your life to change on any level, put the book down, because your life cannot help. If you're now open at the soul level and asking for guidance and wisdom, your life's going to change. It's going to change in beautiful ways, but it's still change. And Americans in particular, we want everything to be better, but we don't want change. You know, we are so resistant to change in our corporations, in our personal lives, in our relationships, but we want to feel better. Well, I don't know quite how you get to better without going through change. And this will bring you lots and lots of beautiful, because you're going to ask yourself new questions, deeper questions, and consequently you're going to get much, much deeper answers. You're going to have a much richer understanding of your life and why you're here. So those are the 4 basic steps. And then when I teach, I do walk people through the 7 steps to get into the theta brainwave state.
Okay. And so one would think that you would need to try this and practice this on a daily basis, if not twice a day or something.
The daily piece is really important. It's important in every book about journaling or writing or any kind of shift, any kind of change. I mean, if you want to change your diet, you've got to change it every day in every meal. If you want to change your body, you've got to show up for yoga or exercise or running or whatever it is you decide to do. You got to do it every day. Well, it turns out there's actually a scientific explanation for this that I never knew when I was doing it, but it takes 30 days to build a new neural pathway in your brain. When you write this way, you are actually changing your brain. Your brain is plastic, and it is capable of change. And so, yes, you want to show up to do it every day. Now, having said that, I don't want people to beat themselves up when life happens and, you know, it's a wild day and there's guests in town and you don't write. Don't get mad at yourself. You know, don't turn this delicious, sweet experience of a conversation with the most loving part of yourself, you know, don't turn it into a crummy obligation. And, oh, now I didn't do it, so now I'm a bad girl or a bad boy. Don't do that. Yes, show up every day. Ideally, you know, for 10 or 15 minutes, ideally at kind of the same time of the day, just to get into the habit, just to get yourself into it. It's a spiritual practice. Well, look at every other spiritual practice, whether it's meditation or prayer or yoga, whatever it is, you got to show up to do it. So yes, when you do it on a regular basis, on a daily basis, you begin to fall very, very quickly, like at hello, you're in theta, and it becomes so sweet and so delicious and so reliable. You can ask any question, you can tell any story, you can share any woe, and you have this healing experience just in 5-10 minutes. Now, if you're going through something very upsetting, some people will write for a much longer period of time. It's not always just 5 or 10 or 15 minutes. When I was going through my divorce, I'll bet you I sat there for an hour and 3/4 because I had so much to vent. Today, it's typically more like 10, maybe once in a while 15 minutes, just to say, hello, here's what's happening, thank you for this, thank you for that, here's what's going on, I love this, ooh, I'm writing this kind of thing, what do you think I should do? It's just this delicious relationship, loving, unconditionally loving relationship, and that's a very sweet experience.
It is, because, whenever I do it, which is practically every day, I feel the love. I feel the connection.
Love. That's it. That's it. When people say, how do you know? And I feel kind of silly saying, oh, you know. You know when you're connected. You know when you've stopped your own part of the story and begun to hear this unconditional love. Now, some people have physical clues. Not everybody. But some people have the experience of the pen having a little bit of energy in and of itself. That's when you're in very, very deep theta. Some people feel a warmth in their heart or a warmth in their hands. There can be these physical clues. But the handwriting can change. Some people get a shift in pronouns. They say I, blah, 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 and spirit answers you, blah, 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 blah. Some people, that doesn't happen to me very often. I'm very jealous of the people who get that. Some people, the handwriting gets big, the handwriting gets small. There are many, many, many different ways. But the one thing that everybody agrees on is the voice speaks in such loving, almost angelic language. If you've ever heard Abraham through Esther Hicks, you know that very wise, loving language. It's a little formal. That's the voice. The voice does not speak with the same colloquial and negative. The voice does not speak in negative language like we do. The voice does not put us down the way we put down ourselves. And so in the Daily Word, I wrote the feature article a couple months ago in the Daily Word. I told a story about a woman who was in a very, very stressful situation. And suddenly on the middle of the page, the handwriting shifted and the voice said, I am unconditionally, unbreakably, forgive me, that was the word. I am unbreakably yours. Just those few words. Yeah, wow. She burst into tears. She showed it to me and asked if that's the voice. And I said, oh my goodness, it's the best appearance of the voice I've ever seen, because humans don't say, I am unbreakably yours. But God does. Spirit does. Your divine inner wisdom does. I am unbreakably yours. So that's how you know. You know in your heart, oh, this is the voice.